Welcome back to Notorious Figures in History, my friends. Today we journey to the shadowy corners of the past, where we whisper the names of men who lived by their own code, a code written in blood and ambition. These are the stories that lurk in the dark alleys of our past, tales of power, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of control. As we embark on this journey, imagine the dimly lit streets, the hushed conversations, and the ever-present tension that defined an era where the line between right and wrong was often blurred. Picture the sepia-toned photographs of men whose faces tell stories of hardship, cunning, and an unyielding desire to rise above their circumstances no matter the cost. Men like Giuseppe Morello, the first known Mafia boss in New York, who established the infamous Morello crime family in the early 1900s. These are lullabies from the Underworld, where the rhythm of power and betrayal will lull you into a different kind of sleep. The Mafia's influence extended beyond crime, infiltrating labor unions, politics, and even Hollywood. So, dim the lights, settle in, and prepare to meet six figures who cast a long shadow over the American landscape. These men were more than just criminals. They were architects of an underworld empire that left an indelible mark on history. Our journey begins not on the mean streets of New York, but amidst the sun-drenched hills of Sicily, where a young man named Giuseppe Morello first drew breath. Sicily, an island rich in history and culture, has always been a land of contrasts. Its breathtaking landscapes, with rolling hills and fertile plains, stand in stark contrast to the harsh realities faced by its inhabitants. The island's beauty is undeniable, but so is its history of poverty and struggle. For centuries, the people of Sicily have toiled under the weight of economic hardship, political turmoil, and social strife. It is in this environment that Giuseppe Morello was born, a place where survival often depended on one's wits and resilience. Born in the small town of Corleone in 1867, Morello's early life was a far cry from the opulent world he would later inhabit. Corleone, a town that would later become infamous as the birthplace of many Mafia figures, was then a modest village, its streets lined with simple homes and its people engaged in the back-breaking work of agriculture. The town's isolation and the rugged terrain surrounding it contributed to a sense of insularity and self-reliance among its residents. Life in Corleone was not easy, and the community was tightly knit, bound together by shared hardships and a common struggle for survival. These were humble beginnings, marked by the harsh realities of peasant life. The people of Corleone, like many in rural Sicily, lived a life of subsistence, their days filled with the toil of farming and the constant battle against poverty. The land was both a source of sustenance and a harsh taskmaster, demanding relentless labor for meager rewards. Families often struggled to make ends meet, and children were expected to contribute to the household from a young age. It was a life that required strength, determination, and a certain toughness of spirit. Even as a child, Morello possessed an air of quiet intensity, his gaze holding a hint of the ruthlessness that would come to define him. There was something about young Giuseppe that set him apart from his peers. Perhaps it was his keen intelligence, or maybe it was the early realization that life would not hand him anything on a silver platter. Whatever the reason, Morello's childhood was marked by a seriousness and a determination that hinted at the man he would become. He was not content to simply accept his lot in life. He was driven by a desire to rise above his circumstances, to carve out a better future for himself and his family. Life in Corleone was harsh, unforgiving, and Morello learned early on the importance of power, of commanding respect, even fear. In a place where resources were scarce and opportunities limited, power dynamics played a crucial role in daily life. The ability to command respect, to instill fear when necessary, was often the difference between survival and failure. Morello observed these dynamics closely, learning valuable lessons about human nature and the ways in which power could be wielded. These lessons would serve him well in the years to come as he navigated the treacherous waters of the criminal underworld. He carried himself with an aura of quiet menace, his gaze steady, unwavering. This demeanor was not just a facade. It was a reflection of the inner strength and resolve that had been forged in the crucible of his early experiences. Morello understood that in a world where weakness could be exploited, projecting an image of strength was essential. His intense gaze and stern demeanor were tools he used to navigate the complex social hierarchies of his community, tools that would later become invaluable in his rise to power. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for young Giuseppe. Despite the challenges he faced, or perhaps because of them, Morello was destined for a life far removed from the fields of Corleone. The winds of change were blowing, and they would soon carry him across the ocean to a new world, a place where his ambitions could take root and flourish. The journey that lay ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it would also be filled with opportunities for those bold enough to seize them. In 1888, seeking a better life, he immigrated to the United States, landing in the teeming melting pot of New York City. The decision to leave Sicily was not an easy one, but for many the promise of America was too enticing to resist. The journey across the Atlantic was long and arduous, filled with uncertainty and the ever-present risk of failure. Yet for those who made it, the rewards could be great. New York City, with its bustling streets and diverse population, represented a land of opportunity, a place where dreams could be realized and fortunes made. Little did he know he was not escaping hardship, but rather stepping into a different kind of crucible. One where ambition and brutality were the tools of survival. The streets of New York were a far cry from the dusty lanes of Corleone, but they were no less challenging. The city was a place of stark contrasts, where immense wealth and abject poverty existed side by side. For immigrants like Morello, the path to success was fraught with obstacles, and only the most determined and resourceful would thrive. The skills he had honed in Sicily, his keen understanding of power, his ability to command respect, would prove invaluable in this new environment. The streets of New York were a far cry from the dusty lanes of Corleone, a chaotic symphony of languages and cultures. The city was a melting pot, a place where people from all corners of the globe came together in search of a better life. This diversity brought with it both opportunities and challenges. For Morello, it meant navigating a complex social landscape, one where alliances could be forged and rivalries ignited. The city's vibrant energy was both exhilarating and daunting, a constant reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead and the dangers that lurked around every corner. But for an ambitious young man like Morello, they presented a different kind of opportunity, a chance to forge a new destiny in a new world. The challenges he faced in New York were different from those in Sicily, but they were no less formidable. Yet, Morello was undeterred. He saw in the city's chaos a chance to carve out a place for himself, to build something lasting and significant. His ambition was matched only by his determination, and he set about the task of establishing himself with the same intensity that had characterized his early years. The seeds of his future empire were sown in the very heart of this vibrant, unforgiving city. New York, with its towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, was a place of endless possibilities. For Morello, it was the perfect setting for his ambitions to take root. He began to build connections, to understand the intricate web of relationships that defined the city's social and economic landscape. It was a process that required patience, cunning, and a willingness to take risks. But Morello was nothing if not resourceful, and he quickly adapted to his new surroundings, laying the groundwork for the empire he would one day command. Our journey through the labyrinthine world of the Mafia takes us now from the fiery ambition of Giuseppe Morello to a man whose life played out in quieter, more calculated tones. This man, Angelo Bruno, was a figure who defied the typical image of a mafia boss. While many of his contemporaries were known for their ruthless tactics and violent methods, Bruno's approach was markedly different. He was a man who believed in the power of diplomacy and subtlety, a stark contrast to the brutal force often associated with organized crime. Angelo Bruno, known as the Gentle Don, was an anomaly in a world defined by violence and intimidation. His nickname, the Gentle Don, was not just a moniker, but a reflection of his unique approach to leadership within the Mafia. Unlike many of his peers who ruled with an iron fist, Bruno preferred to use his intellect and charm to navigate the treacherous waters of organized crime. He was a man who understood that true power often lay in the ability to influence and persuade rather than in the capacity to instill fear. Born in Villalba, Sicily in 1910, Bruno immigrated to the United States as a young boy, settling in Philadelphia, a city that would become both his kingdom and his undoing. The early 20th century was a time of great change and opportunity in America, especially for immigrants seeking a better life. For Bruno, Philadelphia was a land of promise, a place where he could build his empire. The city's bustling streets and diverse population provided the perfect backdrop for his rise to power. However, it was also a city fraught with danger and competition, where only the shrewdest could survive and thrive. Unlike the fiery Morello, Bruno was a man of quiet reserve, a pragmatist who understood that true power lay not in brute force, but in subtle manipulation. His demeanor was calm and composed, a stark contrast to the often volatile personalities of other mafia leaders. Bruno's ability to remain unflappable in the face of adversity earned him the respect and loyalty of his associates. He was a master strategist, always thinking several steps ahead, and his decisions were guided by a keen understanding of human nature and the intricate dynamics of power. He was a man of contradictions, a devout Catholic who presided over an empire built on sin. This duality was a defining feature of Bruno's character. On one hand, he was deeply religious, attending church regularly and adhering to the moral teachings of his faith. On the other hand, he was the head of a criminal organization involved in activities that were in direct opposition to those teachings. This paradoxical existence was something Bruno managed with remarkable skill, compartmentalizing his life in a way that allowed him to reconcile these opposing facets of his identity. He valued education and instilled in his children the importance of legitimacy, all while orchestrating elaborate criminal enterprises. Bruno's commitment to his family's future was unwavering. He believed that education was the key to a better life and ensured that his children had access to the best opportunities available. Despite his involvement in illegal activities, he wanted his family to be seen as respectable members of society. This desire for legitimacy extended beyond his immediate family. Bruno often sought to present a veneer of respectability in his public dealings, carefully crafting an image that belied the true nature of his operations. Angelo Bruno was a study in contrasts, a man who navigated the treacherous waters of the Mafia with a quiet hand and a shrewd mind. His leadership style was characterized by a blend of patience, intelligence, and an uncanny ability to read people. Bruno's approach to conflict resolution was often diplomatic. He preferred to negotiate and find mutually beneficial solutions rather than resorting to violence. This method not only helped him maintain peace within his own ranks, but also earned him a reputation as a fair and reasonable leader among rival factions. His story offers a glimpse into a different side of organized crime, one where diplomacy and discretion often triumphed over brute force. Bruno's legacy is a testament to the power of strategic thinking and the importance of maintaining a calm and composed demeanor in the face of adversity. His life serves as a reminder that even in a world as ruthless as the Mafia, there is room for intelligence, patience, and a touch of humanity. Through his unique approach, Angelo Bruno left an indelible mark on the history of organized crime, showing that sometimes the quietest voices can have the most profound impact. Bruno's reign came to a tragic end in 1980 when he was assassinated, a stark reminder of the ever-present dangers in the world he navigated so skillfully. Frank Costello. They called him the Prime Minister, and not without reason. This wasn't just some street thug with a quick temper and an itchy trigger finger. Costello, he was different. He saw the bigger picture. He understood that true power, lasting power, wasn't about brute force. It was about influence, it was about strategy, about knowing the right levers to pull, the right people to have in your pocket. Costello, he wasn't playing checkers on some street corner. He was playing chess, with the entire city as his board, and he played it masterfully for a very long time. Costello was instrumental in the formation of the National Crime Syndicate. He also had significant influence over the New York docks and the gambling industry. His connections reached into the highest levels of politics, making him a formidable figure in both the underworld and the legitimate world. Vito Genovese, a name whispered in fear, a name synonymous with ruthlessness and ambition. They called him the Don's Don, and he ruled his empire with an iron fist. Genovese was a different breed of mobster, a man driven by an insatiable hunger for power, a man who wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. His story is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that the pursuit of power, unchecked by conscience or morality, can lead to a dark and dangerous place. Genovese was instrumental in the rise of the American Mafia, orchestrating numerous criminal activities from drug trafficking to extortion. His influence extended beyond the underworld, reaching into politics and business. Yet, his reign was marked by violence and betrayal, a legacy that still haunts the Mafia today. The world of organized crime is filled with larger-than-life figures, men whose names echo through the ages, whispered in hushed tones. These are the men who have become legends, their stories told and retold, their deeds immortalized in books, movies, and the collective memory of society. They are the Al Capones, the John Gottis, the Lucky Lucianos. Their lives are open books, their every move documented, their every word recorded. But there are others, those who prefer the shadows, who operate in the background, their influence subtle, their power understated. These are the men who build the foundations upon which the more flamboyant figures stand, the architects of the underworld. But some prefer the shadows, their influence subtle, their power understated. They are the silent puppeteers, pulling the strings from behind the curtain, their names known only to a select few. They are the ones who understand that true power lies not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, where they can move unseen, their actions unnoticed until it is too late. They are the ones who build empires, not with brute force, but with cunning and strategy, their every move calculated, their every decision weighed carefully. They are the ones who understand that the key to power is not in being seen, but in being felt. Their presence a constant, even if their faces are not. Gaspar Messina, they called him the Architect, was one of these men. His name may not be as well known as some of his contemporaries, but his influence was just as profound. Born in Sicily, Messina immigrated to the United States in the early 20th century, bringing with him the traditions and codes of the old country. He settled in New England, a region not typically associated with organized crime, but one that would become the foundation of his empire. Messina was a man of vision, a strategist who understood the importance of alliances and networks. He built his power base not through violence, but through relationships, forging connections that would span decades and generations. His story unfolds not in the bright lights of New York or Chicago, but amidst the cold, cobbled streets of Boston and Providence. These cities, with their rich histories and diverse populations, provided the perfect backdrop for Messina's operations. He understood the importance of blending in, of becoming a part of the community, and he did so with ease. He was a familiar figure in the neighborhoods he controlled, a man who was both respected and feared. His influence extended beyond the criminal underworld, reaching into the political and business spheres, where he forged alliances that would ensure his power and protect his interests. A man of few words, Messina's life is a puzzle, pieced together from fragments, whispers from the past. He was a master of discretion, understanding that in his line of work, silence was often more powerful than words. His actions spoke for him, and those who knew him understood that he was a man to be reckoned with. His legacy is one of quiet strength, of a man who built an empire not through force but through intelligence and strategy. He was a man who understood the power of information, of knowing when to act and when to wait, of understanding the importance of timing and patience. He was a builder, not of structures of brick and mortar, but of empires, networks of loyalty and fear that stretched across state lines. His influence was felt far beyond the streets of Boston and Providence, reaching into the highest levels of power. He was a man who understood the importance of loyalty, of building relationships that would stand the test of time. His empire was built on trust, on the understanding that those who were loyal to him would be rewarded and those who betrayed him would face the consequences. He was a man who understood the power of fear, of using it to control and manipulate, but also the importance of respect, of earning the loyalty of those who served him. Messina's story is one of contrasts, of a man who was both ruthless and compassionate, who understood the importance of both fear and respect. He was a man who could be both a friend and an enemy, who understood the importance of balance in all things. His legacy is one of complexity, of a man who was both a product of his time and a visionary who saw beyond it. He was a man who understood the importance of tradition, but also the need for innovation, of blending the old with the new to create something that would endure. His story is a reminder that true power lies not in the spotlight but in the shadows, where the real work is done and where the true architects of history reside. Messina's influence extended to the formation of the New England Mafia, which would later become one of the most powerful crime families in the United States. His strategic alliances with other crime families, including the New York-based Genovese family, solidified his power and ensured the longevity of his empire. The world of organized crime, a dangerous dance of ambition and treachery, is one that has fascinated and horrified people for generations. It is a world where the stakes are high and the players are willing to risk everything for a taste of power. The story of John Nardi is a stark reminder of the dangers that come with the pursuit of power in the criminal underworld. Nardi, a rising star in the northeast underworld, possessed a sharp mind and a ruthless streak. He navigated the treacherous waters of organized crime with an ambition that knew no bounds. Nardi's involvement in the infamous Cleveland Mafia War of the 1970s, a brutal conflict that claimed many lives, further exemplifies the perilous nature of his world. His alliances with notorious figures like Danny Green, a fellow mobster, only added to the volatility of his position. Nardi's influence extended beyond mere violence. He was known for his ability to broker deals and navigate the complex web of criminal enterprises. His operations included gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering, making him a significant figure in the underworld. Despite his cunning and strategic mind, Nardi's ambition ultimately led to his downfall. His life serves as a stark reminder that in the world of organized crime, the price of power is often paid in blood. And so, we come to the end of our journey and part 1 of this audiobook. Part 2 is about to begin. But before we transition to the next chapter, don't forget to subscribe for more videos on notorious figures in history. By subscribing, you will be joining a community of history enthusiasts, people who are passionate about uncovering the hidden stories of the past. Be sure to check out our notorious figures, hoodies and t-shirts. These items are not just pieces of clothing, but symbols of your passion for history and your support for our channel. Let's begin part 2 of this enchanting Mafia audio lullaby. The American Mafia, a secret society, a criminal enterprise. For over a century, its presence has been felt in the shadows of American society, its influence woven into the fabric of our history. From the bustling streets of New York City to the sun-drenched avenues of Las Vegas, the Mafia's grip on power, wealth and violence has captivated the public imagination. This is the story of their rise, their reign, and their enduring legacy. We delve into the dark heart of organized crime, exploring the intricate network of power, loyalty, and betrayal that defined the American Mafia. Through this audio tale, we journey through time together. Now subscribe in good faith and get ready to journey into the underbelly of America, where power was absolute and loyalty could be bought and sold with the pull of a trigger. This is not just a tale of gangsters and violence, it's a reflection of American society itself. The Mafia's rise mirrored the nation's own tumultuous journey through the 20th century, intertwined with periods of economic boom and bust, social upheaval and political corruption. By understanding the Mafia, we gain a deeper understanding of our own past, confronting the forces that have shaped the nation we know today. Prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of darkness, where the lines between right and wrong blur and the pursuit of power knows no bounds. This is the true story of the American Mafia. The American Mafia's roots trace back to late 19th century Italian immigration. Facing discrimination, they formed tight-knit communities. Mutual aid systems evolved into criminal enterprises. Prohibition fueled organized crime's rise. The American gangster emerged, blending fear and strategy. The stage was set for the rise of the American Mafia. To truly understand the American Mafia, one must look back to its Sicilian origins. The Mafia, as it was known in Sicily, was not just a criminal organization. It was a complex social system with its own code of conduct and hierarchy. This code, known as omerta, emphasized silence, loyalty, and a strict adherence to tradition. The Sicilian Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, originated centuries earlier as a form of protection for peasants against oppressive landlords and corrupt officials. Over time, it evolved into a powerful force, wielding influence over local economies and even politics. This blend of criminal enterprise, social control, and cultural identity would profoundly shape the American Mafia. The influx of Sicilian immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries brought with it not only individuals but also the traditions and structures of the Sicilian Mafia. These immigrants, many of whom had direct ties to the Sicilian underworld, found fertile ground in America's burgeoning criminal landscape. They brought with them their knowledge of organized crime, their strict codes of conduct, and their ruthless efficiency. While the American Mafia drew heavily from its Sicilian roots, it also adapted and evolved in response to its new environment. The availability of wealth and opportunity in America, coupled with the lack of a strong central authority in the criminal underworld, created an environment ripe for the rise of a powerful and sophisticated criminal organization. By the 1930s, the American Mafia had solidified its grip on the criminal underworld, particularly in New York City. A pivotal moment in this transformation was the Castellamarese War, a bloody power struggle that reshaped the landscape of organized crime. From the ashes of this conflict emerged a new order, one dominated by 5 powerful families: Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese. These 5 families, each named after its ruling boss, divided control of New York City's underworld, establishing a complex system of territories, rackets, and alliances. This structure, with its emphasis on hierarchy, discipline, and a strict code of conduct, proved remarkably resilient, providing a framework for the Mafia's operations for decades to come. The 5 families were not merely criminal gangs, they were sophisticated enterprises, each with its own areas of specialization and influence. Their activities extended far beyond traditional rackets like gambling and loan sharking, infiltrating legitimate businesses, labor unions, and even Wall Street. This ability to corrupt and co-opt institutions at the heart of American society would become a hallmark of the Mafia's power. The rise of the 5 families marked a turning point in the history of the American Mafia. They transformed a loose network of criminal gangs into a highly organized and ruthlessly efficient criminal empire. Their reign of power would last for decades, leaving an indelible mark on the American consciousness and shaping the public perception of organized crime for generations to come. The 1920s, a decade of prosperity and excess, provided fertile ground for the growth of organized crime in America. The passage of prohibition in 1920, intended to curb alcohol consumption, had the opposite effect, creating a vast black market for liquor. This illicit trade, controlled by ruthless gangs, generated immense profits, fueling the rise of powerful criminal organizations. The demand for illegal alcohol was insatiable, and the Mafia, with its established networks and ruthless efficiency, was quick to capitalize. Speakeasies, clandestine bars operating outside the law, sprung up in cities across the country, becoming hubs for gambling, prostitution, and other vices. These establishments, often protected by corrupt officials, provided the Mafia with a steady stream of revenue and a veneer of respectability. The competition for control of this lucrative trade was fierce, leading to violent turf wars between rival gangs. The streets of major cities became battlegrounds, with shootouts and bombings a regular occurrence. The violence escalated throughout the decade, reaching a fever pitch in the late 1920s with the rise of notorious gangsters like Al Capone in Chicago. Al Capone, known as Scarface, rose to prominence during this era, becoming a symbol of the gangster era. His ruthlessness, business acumen, and flamboyant lifestyle captivated the public imagination, even as his criminal empire left a trail of blood and corruption in its wake. Capone's Chicago outfit, built on bootlegging, gambling and intimidation, became a model for other aspiring mobsters. By the late 1920s, tensions within the Italian-American underworld had reached a boiling point. Two factions, one led by the aging boss of bosses Joe Masseria and the other by the ambitious Salvatore Maranzano, clashed in a brutal power struggle that would become known as the Castellamarese War. This conflict, named after Maranzano's Sicilian hometown, would reshape the landscape of organized crime in America. The Castellamarese War was a bloody affair, marked by assassinations, betrayals and shifting alliances. Both sides fought for control of lucrative rackets, with the streets of New York City transformed into battlegrounds. The war raged for over a year, claiming the lives of dozens of gangsters, including many innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. In a stunning turn of events, Masseria was assassinated in 1931, reportedly on the orders of his own lieutenant, Charles Lucky Luciano. Luciano, a shrewd and ambitious gangster, had grown disillusioned with Masseria's old-world mentality and saw an opportunity to seize power. He secretly negotiated a deal with Maranzano, ending the war and establishing a new order in the underworld. With Masseria out of the picture, Maranzano declared himself boss of all bosses, attempting to impose a rigid hierarchical structure on the Italian-American underworld. However, Luciano, recognizing the instability of such a system, quickly orchestrated Maranzano's assassination, paving the way for a more modern and collaborative approach to organized crime. Following the Castellamarese War, Lucky Luciano, recognizing the need for stability and order within the underworld, established the Commission. This council, composed of the heads of the most powerful mafia families, aimed to prevent future conflicts and maintain a balance of power within organized crime. The Commission, a testament to Luciano's strategic brilliance, served as a forum for resolving disputes, mediating territorial claims, and regulating criminal activities. It provided a mechanism for cooperation and conflict resolution, ensuring that the Mafia's vast criminal empire could operate with a degree of order and efficiency. This new era of collaboration also extended beyond the Italian-American underworld. Luciano, recognizing the potential for greater profits and influence, forged alliances with Jewish and Irish gangsters, breaking down traditional ethnic barriers within organized crime. This move, while controversial, proved highly effective, expanding the Mafia's reach and influence. The establishment of the Commission marked a turning point in the history of the American Mafia. It ushered in an era of unprecedented cooperation and stability, transforming a loose network of criminal gangs into a highly organized and ruthlessly efficient criminal enterprise. This new order, however, would face challenges in the years to come, tested by internal power struggles, law enforcement crackdowns, and the changing social landscape of America. Section 4. The birth of Las Vegas, a gambler's paradise. The American Mafia saw an opportunity in Las Vegas, a dusty desert town with legal gambling. Mob money transformed it into a glittering paradise. Bugsy Siegel's Flamingo Hotel set new standards, attracting celebrities and high rollers. The Mafia's investment proved incredibly lucrative. Law enforcement began to crack down on illegal activities. The battle for control of Las Vegas would shape the city's destiny. Section 5. Prohibition's demise, the mob's evolution. The repeal of Prohibition in 1933 marked a turning point for the American Mafia. While the end of the noble experiment eliminated a major source of revenue, the mob, ever adaptable, had already begun to diversify its criminal portfolio, expanding into new and lucrative ventures. Labour racketeering became a major focus, with the Mafia infiltrating unions, extorting businesses and controlling hiring practices in various industries. Construction, transportation and the garment industry were particularly vulnerable to mob influence, with corrupt union officials lining their pockets while workers faced intimidation and exploitation. The Mafia's reach extended beyond traditional rackets, infiltrating legitimate businesses, manipulating stock markets and engaging in large-scale fraud. They laundered their ill-gotten gains through seemingly legitimate businesses such as restaurants, nightclubs and vending machine companies, further blurring the lines between the underworld and the mainstream economy. The American Mafia, far from being weakened by the end of Prohibition, had emerged as a more sophisticated and deeply entrenched criminal enterprise. Its influence had seeped into the very fabric of American society, corrupting institutions, exploiting the vulnerable, and challenging the rule of law. The battle against organized crime would continue, but the Mafia, with its adaptability and ruthlessness, had proven itself a formidable and enduring force. Section 1. The mob goes Hollywood, glamour and greed collide. The allure of Hollywood, with its glamour, wealth and proximity to power, proved irresistible to the American Mafia. As early as the 1930s, organized crime had infiltrated the entertainment industry, recognizing the potential for both profit and influence. The studios, with their vast resources and reliance on organized labor, presented an irresistible target. Labor unions, particularly those representing actors, writers and technicians, became fertile ground for mob infiltration. Corrupt union officials, often on the take from Mafia bosses, exerted control over hiring practices, extorting studios and lining their own pockets at the expense of rank-and-file members. The Mafia's involvement in Hollywood extended beyond labor racketeering. They financed films, skimmed profits from box office receipts, and used their influence to secure roles for favored actors and actresses. The line between the glamour of Hollywood and the ruthlessness of organized crime became increasingly blurred. The mob's influence on Hollywood was not without its consequences. Creative freedom was stifled as studios were pressured to produce films that glorified organized crime or catered to mob-controlled theaters. Fear and intimidation permeated the industry, silencing those who dared to speak out against the mob's grip on power. On November 14, 1957, a routine traffic stop in upstate New York exposed a clandestine Mafia gathering. The Appalachian meeting changed public perception of organized crime and increased law enforcement scrutiny. Hosted by Joseph Barbara, it was meant to discuss mob business. Over 100 mafiosi attended, but their presence drew suspicion. Sergeant Edgar Croswell investigated, leading to a raid and national headlines. The Appalachian meeting exposed the Mafia's inner workings and shattered its invisibility. The 1980s saw John Gotti rise as the charismatic boss of the Gambino crime family known as the Teflon Don. Gotti's public persona and media savvy made him a notorious figure. His reign was marked by violence and extravagance. Ultimately, his high profile led to his downfall. In 1992, Gotti was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. For decades, the Mafia's code of silence, omerta, had shielded its members from prosecution. Witnesses were intimidated into silence, their fear of retribution outweighing any desire for justice. However, the creation of the Witness Protection Program in 1970 provided a crucial tool for law enforcement, offering a lifeline to those willing to break the code and testify against organized crime. The Witness Protection Program, established under the Organized Crime Control Act, offered a new life to witnesses and their families who were willing to testify against the Mafia. In exchange for their cooperation, witnesses were given new identities, relocated to undisclosed locations, and provided with financial assistance to help them rebuild their lives. The program, while not without its challenges and controversies, proved remarkably effective in breaking the Mafia's grip on witnesses. Fear, once a powerful deterrent, began to dissipate as mobsters realized that even the most deeply entrenched criminal enterprises were vulnerable to the testimony of those who had once pledged their loyalty. The Witness Protection Program marked a turning point in the fight against organized crime. It empowered those who had been silenced by fear, providing them with a voice and a chance at a new life. The Mafia, once seemingly untouchable, now faced the prospect of its own members turning against it, their testimony unraveling the intricate web of secrecy that had long protected them. The closing decades of the 20th century witnessed a steady erosion of omerta, the Mafia's once sacrosanct code of silence. A confluence of factors contributed to this decline, including aggressive law enforcement tactics, the emergence of high-profile informants, and a growing public disillusionment with organized crime. Law enforcement agencies, armed with new tools and tactics such as the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO, stepped up their efforts to dismantle the Mafia. RICO, passed in 1970, provided prosecutors with a powerful weapon, allowing them to target the financial infrastructure of criminal enterprises and to prosecute individuals for a pattern of criminal activity rather than just isolated offences. The emergence of high-profile informants, such as Sammy the Bull Gravano, a former underboss in the Gambino crime family, dealt a further blow to the Mafia's code of silence. Gravano's testimony, which led to the conviction of John Gotti, shattered the myth of omerta, demonstrating that even the most trusted members of the Mafia were willing to break ranks to save themselves. The decline of omerta had a profound impact on the American Mafia. Prosecutions became more frequent and successful, convictions were secured against high-ranking mobsters, and the Mafia's grip on power began to weaken. The once seemingly impregnable wall of silence had crumbled, exposing the inner workings of organized crime and paving the way for a new era of law enforcement dominance. The American Mafia's rise to power was a twisted reflection of the American dream. Both were fueled by ambition and a relentless pursuit of wealth and status. The Mafia's version was built on exploitation, intimidation, and a disregard for the law. It offered a path to wealth and power outside traditional channels. This path demanded absolute loyalty and a willingness to engage in violence. The Mafia's success exposed the hypocrisy at the heart of American society. The same system that condemned organized crime often turned a blind eye to its excesses. The Mafia held up a mirror to America, reflecting both its aspirations and its failings. It is a story of ambition gone astray and opportunity corrupted. The story continues to resonate today as the allure of easy money persists. The post-World War II era saw the American Mafia embroiled in a new and even more destructive criminal enterprise, the drug trade. The lure of vast profits proved too strong to resist. The drug trade transformed the Mafia's operations, bringing unprecedented wealth, but also increased violence. The rise of a youth counterculture and the availability of heroin and cocaine facilitated this shift. Heroin became a major source of revenue, fueling a nationwide epidemic of addiction. The Mafia's involvement devastated communities, increasing crime and overwhelming social services. The war on drugs? In the 1970s, targeted organized crime, leading to high-profile arrests and asset seizures. Section 3. Operation Donnie Brasco Undercover and Inside the Mafia. In the annals of undercover law enforcement, few operations are as daring as Operation Donnie Brasco. For 6 years, FBI agent Joseph Pistone infiltrated the Bonanno crime family as Donnie Brasco. Pistone's journey began in 1976, adopting the persona of a jewel thief. He gained the trust of mobsters, becoming a trusted associate of Dominic "Sonny Black" Napolitano. Pistone documented the Mafia's activities, including extortion and illegal gambling. He gathered evidence that led to the conviction of dozens of mafiosi. Pistone's work came at a tremendous personal cost. He lived a double life, and his family endured years of fear. When his identity was revealed in 1981, it sent shockwaves through the Mafia. Operation Donnie Brasco was a watershed moment in the fight against organized crime. It provided law enforcement with an unprecedented glimpse into the Mafia's structure. It demonstrated the effectiveness of undercover work in penetrating criminal organizations. Section 4. The Fall of a Kingpin. Paul Castellano and the Gambino family. The Gambino crime family was shaken in 1985 with the assassination of its boss, Paul Castellano. Orchestrated by John Gotti, this marked a turning point, signaling a shift in power and the beginning of instability. Castellano, known as Big Paul, was more a businessman than a traditional mafia boss. His focus on business alienated many, including Gotti, who craved power. On December 16, 1985, Castellano and his underboss were gunned down outside Sparks Steakhouse. The hit, carried out by Gotti loyalists, sent shockwaves through the underworld. Gotti seized control, ushering in an era of high-profile violence and media attention. Section 5. The Rise of New Blood, the Changing Face of Organized Crime. The late 20th and early 21st centuries saw new, ruthless organizations challenge the Italian-American mafia. Globalization and immigration created opportunities for these new criminal enterprises. Russian organized crime gained a foothold in the US after the Soviet Union's collapse. Known for brutality and cybercrime, they became a formidable force. Asian groups like Triads and Yakuza expanded in the US, focusing on drugs and smuggling. Their strict codes made them hard to penetrate. The rise of new groups and the Mafia's decline signaled a new era. The underworld became more diverse and violent. Law enforcement adapted with international cooperation and technology. As the 21st century progressed, the American Mafia adapted to the burgeoning world of cybercrime. The digital realm's anonymity and global reach proved irresistible for illicit enrichment. The Mafia's foray into cybercrime required new skills and strategies. They leveraged intimidation, money laundering, and corrupt officials. Alliances with Eastern European hackers facilitated cyber attacks and laundering. Credit card fraud, identity theft, and online extortion became lucrative ventures. Online gambling operations provided a steady stream of revenue. Law enforcement struggled to keep pace with digital threats. The cross-border nature of cybercrime made traditional techniques less effective. Combating the Mafia required international cooperation and technological sophistication. The Mafia infiltrated various sectors, from construction to Wall Street, using corruption and violence to secure profits. Shows like The Sopranos glamorized the Mafia, blending its brutal reality with cultural fascination. Post 9/11, the Mafia became a secondary threat as law enforcement focused on terrorism. The Mafia today is weakened but adapts, forming new alliances and embracing technology. The Mafia now collaborates with global crime syndicates, navigating a complex criminal landscape. The Mafia exploits the opioid crisis, profiting from the suffering and addiction of others. The Mafia's adaptability ensures it remains a persistent, evolving threat. The Mafia's legacy is one of violence, corruption, and a betrayal of the American dream. The Mafia's story is a cautionary tale of power, corruption, and the ongoing fight for justice. Subscribe for more stories on notorious figures in history. Oh, and by the way, pick a Notorious Figures hoodie or mug from our store in the video description if you would like to support our channel. Cheers!